you're at Belfour, and there's this 33-year-old company that hasn't franchised called Rolling Suds. How do you find them? And what inspired you to say, you know what? I want to own a brand. I'm going to do this
Yeah.
now. Bring me to the whole thing on how you found these guys or how they found you.
Yeah, sure. So the middle of last year, so the middle of 2022, we had grown Belfour Franchise Group from 3 brands to 12. When I left, there was only one platform organization in the services space that was larger than us from a unit count perspective. And we had also grown Patch Boys from where it was, which was no systems, to 323 units. And I did that in 24 months. And all those locations opened, and they opened with full-time labor hired prior to going to training, and they opened with estimates on the calendar upon leaving training. During that time, I was being asked by places like Springboard or FLDC or some of these conferences to participate on a thought leadership level on panels and, discussions about how to properly franchise a business. And so I went to a conference in 2022 in July, FranServe conference. I'm very close with the team over there at FranServe and spoke on the expert panel. Joan Winchester, I'm not sure if you know Joan, but she came up to me afterwards and she's like, I had an aha moment. I'm like, what's up? She's like, you need to own your own brand. You need to go and you need to start your own business. You need to buy a brand. Like, I don't care. You need to own it. And I was like, I had already known I was going to go start a business. I
Okay.
didn't know it was going to be something that was filling a void in franchising. And I had ideas, but I didn't know which one was. And I kind of like didn't see fully the path to get there. I had that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And started building infrastructure then that I could plug into any concept based on anything I learned, marketing programs, SOPs, like supplier relationships, all that. And then in September, I met founders of Rolling Suds. I had looked from July to September at about 24 businesses,
Mm-hmm.
ranging anywhere from 750,000 top line to 14 million in the residential and commercial services space.
Okay.
Met the founders of Rolling Suds in September of 2022 at Springboard. And they were like, we're good at power washing, not franchising. And I was like, great. I know nothing about power washing, but I know a lot about franchising.
So they were
And they were
thinking of
talking.
franchising then at this point.
So they had gotten an FDD.
Okay.
They had gotten an FDD, realized how much capital and time it would take to actually franchise, and realized, wait a minute, this is going to take away from the business that I know how to run really well.
Mm-hmm.
And my business that I know how to run really well is going to suffer. And I might spend all this money on franchising and I might only get 2 to 3 owners, right? Which I think is really impressive that they recognize that it's a completely different business
Mm-hmm.
and decided, wait a minute, I don't know how to do this. Why don't I partner with a franchisor? And why don't I just keep running my business and the franchisor partner with the franchisor in the
Smart.
franchise
Really
business?
smart.
Really smart. They're just great people. And I had a really like clear checklist of what I was looking for. Like there was bullet pointed. I knew exactly what I was looking for in a business, and Rolling Suds checked all the boxes.
What were some of the,
And
I want to hear what were some of the most important aspects of a business that were going to check those boxes?
yeah, sure. So, and this is just based on my experience. So I needed something that was need-based, niche. I don't want a business that has a long, complex list of service offerings. They're hard to scale. I think from a consumer standpoint, consumers like to hire a company that does one thing and does it really well. Something that was recession resistant that I even either felt had the ability to go through hard times or in the best case scenario had gone through hard times, right? This is a
Mm-hmm.
33-year-old business. Something that was at a large total addressable market. So a lot of customers, so both residential and commercial. Unskilled labor was a non-negotiable for me. I think that when you have skilled labor, you just have there's a certain lack of control on the business because if you can't train someone to do the job, you're beholden to certain employees
Mm-hmm.
or certain licenses based on the business. So that was, non-negotiable for me. There were two things on my list that were nice to haves and not need to haves because they're really hard to find when you're analyzing opportunities. But the first one is like a difference in product offering. So a product that is essentially better objectively than the rest of the industry, right? So think like an iPhone in 2007, like before that, it was the BlackBerry and the
Mm-hmm.
Motorola Razr and the Nokia brick phone. And that was like as advanced as it was.
Right.
The iPhone came out and like completely disrupted the industry and people have been trying to catch up with it for decades now. So with Rolling Suds, like we do a 3,000 square foot house in 25 minutes, start to finish, like
Wow.
set up, tear down, everything. Charge the customer $400 or $500. And no one else can do that. We're the only power washing company in the world that can do that. We build the equipment ourselves. We have a proprietary kind of technology and process that we do that you can't get unless you're a Rolling Suds franchisee. So if you have a difference in product offering, it's a lot easier to disrupt an industry. The other thing that I was looking for that was a nice to have, but not a need to have, was little to no competition in the franchise space. So the best example of this would be like 1-800 Got Junk in the 90s. The junk business was just a dude who had a car and put junk in it. And then 1-800 Got Junk came in and had a wrapped vehicle, and they answered the phone and they showed up on time, and they built this billion-dollar company because they were the first sophisticated operators in the franchise space. They've since paved the way for college hunks hauling junk, Junk King, Junk Luggers, and some of these brands you can't get territory now for if you tried.
Sure.
And so there's no niche power washing franchise brand that has any level of relevance. There are exterior cleaning companies that do gutters and windows and all of these other services, but there's no franchise brand that just does power washing. And so I saw an opportunity to be the first sophisticated operator in an industry and kind of reset standards. I say reset, but set standards, because the majority of the industry are people that do the power washing currently. So, and the reason why those were nice to haves, but not need to haves, is I'm sure you're understanding they're hard to find in a business, but also I had both of those things with the last businesses I worked on. ChemDry had a proprietary technology and process that no one's been able to touch for over 40 years. No one touched it, and they're still the biggest. And then Patch Boys, we were first to market in the drywall repair space on the franchise side. And there's like 6 or 7 other patching franchises that have come out trying to kind of ride the tidal wave that we created there. And so with Rolling Suds, I was able to find both of those things, and it's a simple business model, and it just made a ton of sense. So does that answer your question, or was there something else you wanted me?
Yeah, no, that's great. That is great. And so Rolling Suds now, so you acquired the franchise rights to the business. So the original founders are still running their company-owned location?
Yep. And they're involved in the franchise business as well. So they're partners of mine in the franchise business. They continue to own and operate and grow their corporate location. But me and them are the 2 biggest shareholders in the company for the franchise entity. And so we partnered. I raised capital from people like David Barr and Brad Fishman, who you know. I wanted people who had kind of like long-term experience that could provide intellectual capital in addition to actual capital. We just finalized another transaction. David asked me if he could get more involved from a financial and an equity standpoint. I said, you sure can. Kind of built a really incredible board of advisors for this. We finalized everything in January of this year and started franchising in February.
Wow. Aaron, you built such a strong foundation for your business. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So, you were telling me earlier before we started, so you have 22 franchisees currently in 64 territories. And what you do that's a little bit different than most of the emerging franchise founders that I talk to is that you require a minimum of 2 franchise territories, right, per franchisee, and because you're looking for strictly multi-unit franchise owners. Would you share with the audience why multi-unit franchise owners is the only kind of candidate you're looking for?
Yeah, so there's a very different thought process between a single unit owner and a multi-unit owner. A single unit owner is often looking to take a salary from maybe one truck. They don't have as much desire to scale. There's just a psychology around buying one territory that just isn't going to work with how big we want to grow. There's nothing wrong with single unit owners, just to be clear. But what I am looking to accomplish with Rolling Suds is building a massive business. We have an opportunity to build the biggest power washing company in the world. We'll do that probably by the end of next year from a revenue standpoint. We'll be the biggest power washing franchise in the world by March, just in terms of unit counts. And then that's a year in, right? So like we have this opportunity to build something extraordinary. So we need people who have really big goals, franchisees who have really big goals to come in and help us get there. And I believe I've built the infrastructure to support those types of franchisees. And the only thing I believe right now that would get in the way of us becoming the biggest power washing company in the world is bringing in franchisees who don't have the wherewithal, whether it's from a capital or a goal standpoint, to grow at the same rate that the organization is growing.
Right. So you're looking for a more sophisticated franchise owner that obviously has the financial wherewithal and understands it's not owner operated. They get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Initially, with any business, you're going to learn how the cogs work. You're going to learn how to manipulate the P&L. You're going to learn how to train people.
Right.
You're going to learn how to be effectively the general manager. But then what I like to call, you're going to fire yourself roles. And in order to do that, you have to be able to delegate and remove yourself from certain situations. And we're looking for people who want to build assets, not jobs. And so I brought on a business coach. He's a former multi-unit Dunkin' Donuts franchisee. He had 8 locations and exited. And my guidance to him is, listen, I want you to help every franchisee that comes in to understand that they're a multi-unit owner and help them think like a multi-unit owner. With a multi-unit owner, it's less about salary and it's more about enterprise value. There's these thought processes that we are trying to instill upon franchisees because we want franchisees that want to build a multi-million-dollar business. And that is not fathomable for a lot of single unit owners.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.